Today, let's make a cute beaded clutch perfect to go see Frozen. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and today I'm going to show you a really simple way to make a beaded clutch. So to do this, you're going to need 2 pieces of fabric for the outside, 2 pieces of fabric for the lining, as well as 2 pieces of fusible fleece, and then you're also going to want 2 extra pieces that we're going to be using as a flap. Now, you basically just want these to be rectangle shaped, with those 2 pieces that you'll be using as the flap slightly shorter than all of the other pieces. Otherwise, you could make it be as big or small as you wanted. So the first step that I needed to do was I needed to attach my fusible fleece to the lining material of my fabric. So this is going to give us a little bit more structure to our bag, as well as provide a little bit of padding. Next, I'm going to match with right sides together those 2 pieces of the lining that now have the fusible fleece in them, and I'm going to pin these up around 3 of the edges, so those 2 short edges of the rectangles as well as 1 long edge. So this is going to be the inside of our bag, so it has a really nice and neat looking lining. And then once I do this, I am going to then take a seam all the way around, so starting from that short edge all the way to the other short edge, leaving the top portion open. Now I'm going to repeat these exact same steps for the outside of the bag, so pinning these with right sides together so that I am able to sew up those 3 sides. And then you may have guessed it, we are going to be repeating this for the flap as well. So basically having those 2 pieces of your fabric with right sides together, we're going to be matching those and pinning up those 2 short edges and 1 long edge. Now all of this is then going to be sewn, and this is going to allow us to have our pieces that we can then individually turn right side out as needed. So now that I have these 3 pieces all pinned up, I'm just going to go to my sewing machine. Now I am using stretch velvet for the outside of my bag, so I am going to be using a knit foot. But if you're just using cotton, you can use a regular foot. For all of this, I am just doing a straight stitch though, as I don't need to worry about the material stretching. I'm just using the material as I had leftovers to match a shirt that I had. So now for the inside, for the lining, again, just sewing this up as well, and be sure to backstitch everything so it's nice and secure. Now I'm just going to go through and trim off any extra material. You don't want this to be too bulky, especially with that fusible fleece, and then I'm just going to be trimming off the corners so that they lay nice and flat. Once I have everything trimmed and ready to go, I'm going to be turning the lining right side out and then putting the outside of my bag with right sides together to match the lining. So that's what I've done here. I've just put my lining into the bag so the right sides are together, and then I'm going to pin up half of this. So basically just one side of my fabric, I'm pinning all of this up so that I can take a seam and I can attach these. The other side you do not want to pin up, as that's going to be how we are attaching our flap on, as well as turning this right side out. So I'm just going through, as you can see, pinning all of this together, and then I'm just going to be taking a straight seam from one edge all the way to the other, leaving that second edge completely open. So for this, I did use my walking foot again just because I was using this knit material, so just very carefully sewing this all the way through. So now I'm going to turn this right side out so you can see that the lining is able to go into the bag now. It all looks really, really nice. And then I'm going to be folding over the long edge of the outside of the bag as well as that long edge of the lining so that it looks nice and neat. Now with this folded over, I'm now going to be inserting the flap into there. So as you can see, I have these 2 pieces of the material. They are folded over, and I'm just going to be pinning these up to hold them in place as a first step. So basically what we're doing here is making it so that our outside pieces of those fabric, the edges, they are no longer seen, so they are being kind of folded in on themselves. And then I'm just going to be pinning these in place so that they stay where I want them to and that they aren't going to be coming out. Now to actually attach the flap to the bag, I am going to be hand sewing this, as I think it's going to give it a much nicer clean look. You could definitely just machine sew all of this on though. I'm just doing that extra step as I really want the bag to come out nice and neat and to have as few visible stitches as possible. So with that all nice and pinned up, it is now time to insert the flap of our bag into where I just pinned. So I'm going to very carefully, I just take out a pin at a time and then insert the flap into the bag. So as you can see, I'm doing that here, and I just go all the way through, making sure that everything is laying nice and flat and smooth. And then once this is done, I'm just going to begin the hand stitching process. So for the hand stitching, I did start just on one side, so basically sewing on the outside of the fabric to the flap, and then sewing on the inside of the fabric to the flap as well. So 2 separate stitches, making sure everything just comes together. Now again, depending on the fabric you used and how you really wanted to sew this, you could definitely just machine stitch this all the way through so that you would just be able to complete this all in one stitch. I just found doing the hand stitching a little bit nicer and gave it a more invisible feel, but it's really up to you with how you want to finish off this bag. You could also top stitch this to give it more of a decorative touch, so there's lots of different ways that you could attach this flap to the main portion of your bag. It really just depends on how much work you want to put into it. So with all of that done, the flap is now in my bag. We have a really cute little clutch that is ready to go. So now before I added the last step of adding a snap, I decided I wanted to add some beads to it. So I have a bunch of Swarovski crystals and I am just going to be sewing these on bead by bead so that I can have this really pretty effect on the outside of my bag. So I had some large ones, I started with those, and then I just used some medium-sized ones and worked my way all the way along the bag, alternating between clear and then this really light blue pretty color so that it would have this really unique kind of icy look to it. Then I also attached a chain that I had that had some crystals on it too. That way I just had the option if I wanted to of holding it by the chain or holding the clutch itself. So this is what all the beads look like so far. It's coming together really nicely. And then finally I just added a few tinier beads along the outside edges to give it more of like a gradient look going from big to small. Once those were done though, the actual decoration of the bag was complete and it was just time to add a snap. Now I did use a large snap just so I could make sure it was closed. I even added one little bead on the side so that it kind of tied into the back. And then I just hand stitched the clasp on. There are lots of different snaps you could use, lots of different clasps that could be used. I also know there are magnetic clasps, so it really depends on what you're looking for in your bag to have it open and close. Once I had the one done, I just sewed on the top snap as well. And once that was all done, this bag was complete. This bag was super easy to whip up. You can definitely make it as much or as little as you want. I went the little extra step adding all those beads to it, but I think it works really well with this fabric and it's going to be perfectly on theme for Frozen. I also did make this NH Heather sweater top. As you can see, it's the same fabric as the clutch was, just so that they could have a little matching element, and then we'll be wearing a skirt that I've actually had for a really long time to give it a very wintry feel. And with all of this done, it is now time to go to the show. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you want to see next. Thanks so much for watching.